We have a short agenda tonight, but I don't know if you had a chance to read any of the emails I sent out late this afternoon. One was I just heard about an article in the Sentinel, and I sent you a PDF copy of the Sentinel, and but I also printed out 3 or 4 paragraphs. And we'll talk about those later after we get through the business, but it was sort of an important kind of thing. So I think the first item of business today would be approval of minutes from past meetings. And Bob, you sent those out?
Yeah, I sent them out earlier today. I don't know if everyone had a chance to look at them.
Yes.
They're quite short.
Yes.
So I'll take a motion to, you want to do them all at once, Bob?
Fine with me.
Okay,
Yep.
I'll take a motion to approve the minutes that were distributed earlier today from the meetings of, what's the dates?
May 17th, excuse me, May 27th, May 20th,
May 19th.
and May 26th.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, then all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? Okay, thank you. The next item will be, we received a reserve fund transfer request from Kathy Kelly Regan. She's asking for $2,000. The paying for town election wages, I'm in the negative $1,200. I'm requesting enough to cover wages for town election and town meetings. So unforeseen expenses due to early voting and early voting by mail. It was not calculated into the budget. So it seems straightforward to me compared to most of the ones we received. So I'll take a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the item? If not, then all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed or abstentions? Okay, thank you. And I think that's about it for the agenda. Now, I'm still waiting to hear from Lynn on a couple of items, one of which is whether or not she prefer that on a couple of the motions that I've written out, she prefer they be broken up into 2 pieces. So I want to talk to her a little more about that. She was going to check with the town lawyer on a couple of things too. But the other thing is, let me read for you a couple pieces of the document from the Sentinel that were sent out, that I sent out to you.
Yes.
The paragraphs that I sent include these kinds of things. That apparently they've had in fiscal year 21, there were 2 allotments that came because of the COVID funding. One for about $300,000 and another one for $290,000. And they're going to be available on July 1st, 2021, and they have until 2023 to use it. And then there's another one. They said that this year, fiscal year 22, we're using most, if not all, to help reduce our operational budget. And they said that there's another funding coming, which they expect to receive around $635,000, and to be able to use that through September of 2024. Now, here's the sentence. This was reported in the Sentinels. The school and finance committee determined the funding wouldn't be used to offset the operational budget. And what I wrote in the email was, I must have missed that meeting. I don't remember any such agreement or even any kind of discussion. So this is now a source of 600 some odd $1,000 that they're apparently expecting to have available for the budget, which is reporting is already $700,000 over minimum required net school spending. So I don't know if you probably haven't had a chance to take a look at it since I just had a chance to send it out. But we did not agree to use any offset funds for anything other than operational budget.
Yeah, I don't remember any meeting to that fact.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I don't remember any meeting to where we agreed to that, John.
We didn't.
We only had one meeting with the school committee that I remember, or was there two? There's two, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, it's possible that what they did was we had a lot of dialogue going back and forth, and you know how and maybe because these were not fully funds, they sort of twisted some of our comments in order to make it sound this way, that I think perhaps we've used operational budget in some context, and so they chose to reinterpret it, you know, to their benefit, I guess. So,
well,
to show that this would be in addition to anything else.
this is the first we've ever heard of $635,000 perhaps being made available.
Right.
And we've only heard, I think, in newspaper reports about this $298,000 and $292,000 because we had specifically asked for any information they had about funding, along with a lot of other things, which were never answered. We never got answers to those sort of questions. Now, the other thing is this. As far as we know, the only budget that they voted on was actually voted on the day before we voted on the budgets for the town. And in the YouTube video of their meeting, they voted a budget that's exactly the same as the one that we voted. It's identical. So someplace or another, they've created a different budget, but we don't know that there's been a vote taken on it. We don't know there's been any vote taken, official school vote taken, to ask for more money beyond what on the surface appears to be their officially voted budget. They've had meetings and they talked about amounts, but we're not aware that they've actually voted any other budget. So this is a very mystifying year as to the school budget. But it does look like there's money there. Or will be money.
If I read that whole thing, I would just like to make a comment. What I'm really reading was ESSER 1 and 2 were available last year, but the state only approved the release of ESSER 1. For this school year, the state has now approved the release of ESSER 2, the 292 for FY22. ESSER 3, which is another $635,000, would be eligible to use the funding through September of 2024. That's going to be subject to release by the state. Given a pattern for the first two, or however it gets released or approved, it's possible that we wouldn't actually see ESSER 23 funds until FY23. Even though it's out there, it still has to be awarded, I guess. It's allocated, but it's not awarded. So ESSER 1 for last school year was awarded. ESSER 2 is awarded for this school year. I think ESSER 3 won't be awarded for another year, is my assumption.
There are additional questions. Funds that have already been approved, whether they've been spent or not, I think raised the question of this. Last 2 years, there has been an amount of money authorized by the town to be spent on the schools each year. And as far as we know, that there was agreement that the school budget would be those budgets in the last 2 years. So they've got this additional money. Are they giving back the equivalent amount of money to the town because they don't need it? because this is being spent? I mean, how does anybody in the town know why they are spending additional monies instead of refunding the town monies which were already allocated? I mean, this school system is not an independent organization. They're part of the town.
Let me chime in a little bit.
Okay.
I heard the actual comments that were made relative to the grants. And also the comment about the finance committee agreeing. I think I did not read what you sent me, but from what you read tonight, I think the newspaper has got it a little bit out of context from what was actually said at the meeting. It wasn't that we said we wouldn't use it. It was more like agreed that it wasn't a good idea to use it. There's
Before it was
more recent. Pardon?
Before it was allocated? Before it was awarded?
Let's get to that in a minute, all right?
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure of what awarded means in the true sense. They have to submit stuff before they get paid. At the meeting they had, what was it, last night? There was a chart of how they were doing on using up the COVID money. And, you know, they showed last year and it was all gone, and they showed this year and it's getting near gone, but it isn't gone yet. On the ESSER 3 stuff, the 600-odd thousand, there's a requirement of that 20% of that has to be used for something. Like, I'm going to say summer programs, you know, to make up for whatever loss of education occurred during COVID. The rest of the money can be spent. But I don't know whether it's just totally freely allocated and it's up to them to choose it, or whether that it does need some sort of an approval.
And the town receives some money that, matter of fact, a lot of grants for businesses have been done so that you're approved for things that you might not otherwise do and can only be spent on things that you might otherwise not do. And that's fine. I mean, there's a grant with a condition. You either meet the condition, you don't meet the condition by doing something beyond what you had already been planning on doing. But money that just comes in can be used for anything. I don't know how the town thinks, but I know a lot of voters, taxpayers would think that should not be used just spent on however people feel like it. That we had agreed on a budget, and if there's additional funds coming in, they return town money. So I think that's a legitimate position to hold. So at any rate, I know that there's going to be a lot of discussion at the town meeting. Speaking of which, I just heard today that the very first article in the bylaws, which I think it's the very first article in the bylaws, first or second, that talks about the dates for the town meeting, and that's due for challenges from, or would be due from challenges from a lot of different sources. We are going to stand up and make the motion to amend, but there are a number of people who are very interested in having just one day set in the bylaws for town meeting, and then operate like we do, where there's complete freedom to schedule meetings whenever they are available for credible means and credible timing, such as the budget being finished or not finished. So it's going to be an interesting town meeting. It will be interesting to see whether or not there's sentiment to hold it on the same day that we held the budget meeting, or whether people want to postpone. So that's about what I have. I talked to a couple of other town officials, and there are going to be some small budget amendments outside the schools, but they're not really much to worry about.
Okay.
I had hoped that I would have heard from Lynn by now, but I haven't. I know that she has to speak to the town lawyer. She has got a lot of work to do. I think that she's getting inquiries about amendments from a lot of different sources. She likes to help out as she can at this annual town meeting by, she's asked us to see our proposed amendments beforehand, and I've sent them to her. And I actually have some questions about a couple of them. I hope she'll be able to read them and get back. Just, she knows that if the intention of the people who are at the meeting are to hear that amendment, the fact that it's not written precisely right doesn't mean that people are going to demand that we pause and get the thing written correctly, and which is just a time waster if it can be done beforehand. So I applaud her for making an effort to see that these things are in as good a shape as they can be. So that's all I have. Like I said, we have meetings scheduled for tomorrow night and Friday night. I don't think we need them. I will probably wait until the afternoon to formally cancel them, just in case something comes up during the day. It's possible something will, but I don't expect it to be necessary for us to have meetings. But I will hold on to them until tomorrow afternoon and Friday afternoon. And the meeting is Saturday at 9 a.m. Outdoors in the tent like last year. So Scott, you now cannot make the meeting on Saturday. Is that correct? And I think Rich, Joe, and Bob, you expect to be able to attend the meeting Saturday morning?
I
I
do.
do.
Okay, great. It's going to be quite a meeting. Anybody have anything else they want to talk about this evening? Let me, Rich, I see that you're on. Let's ask you again the question that when we bring up the article about auditing, do you think that you will be standing up and commenting on that one?
It all depends on what the situation is. I kind of go with the flow.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody, if nobody has anything else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ooh.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Bob, yeah. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.